Hey guys, tonight we follow the whisper of silk threads across burning dunes, shadowy caravanserais, and wind-lashed mountain passes to trace a forgotten business empire built not on swords or spices, but on camel blankets. Yeah, camel blankets. The kind with tassels so fine they could make a grown trader weep. You find yourself barefoot in the blistering sand outside Merv, blinking through heat shimmer, where the only shade is cast by a squat date palm and a camel chewing cud like it knows something you don't. The air is thick with dust and old secrets. Your throat's dry, your tunic clings to your back, and your only possession of value? A single embroidered camel blanket. Woven from coarse wool but edged in silk, it carries a curious motif, a phoenix rising from a spiral, stitched in deep indigo and burnt orange. You're not even sure where it came from. It just showed up one morning. And now, half the market wants to buy it, while the other half wants to steal it. And as you'll soon learn, that's a pretty standard Tuesday on the Silk Roads. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop your city and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge past the sun-bleached bones of a ruined caravan, the wind-stirring little whirlwinds of sand around your ankles. Merv, the city at the edge of the known world, or at least your known world, looms ahead like a mirage that never quite fades. Its walls ripple in the heat like a dream stitched together by over-caffeinated scribes. And in this dream, it seems you've accidentally stepped into commerce. That blanket? It started a bidding war in the outer market. A Turkmen trader offered you 2 silver coins and a goat. A Sogdian merchant countered with saffron and a pair of carved dice. You hadn't even said it was for sale, but suddenly it was worth something. No, everything. A local dyer even accused you of smuggling a royal design, and a kid tried to bite off one of the tassels when you weren't looking. You escaped the chaos by ducking into a textile tent, heart-pounding. Inside, spools of thread in every hue dangle from the ceiling like candy for the color-starved. A one-eyed woman eyes your blanket with reverence, then squints at your face like it's an afterthought. She mutters in broken Greek, "That stitching? Not yours." But it chooses you. Historians still argue whether Merv was the first true blanket capital of the East-West trade, or just the first place someone got caught trying to sell a knockoff. Either way, you're part of something now. You don't know what, but it smells like cardamom and regret. By nightfall, word spreads. A new trader with a rare pattern has arrived. You, your blanket, your camel, who frankly deserves more credit than it gets. And while most caravan merchants are hawking incense, lapis, or bundles of raw silk, you're suddenly the blanket person. You meet a man who calls himself Azar, a textile broker with soft hands and a loud laugh. "I can triple your earnings," he says, fingers brushing the fringe of your blanket like it's a lover. But you need more. One blanket? That's nothing. We need a line, a style, a story. He wants you to go big, to build a brand. He literally says brand. Weird, right? So you partner up. You ride to the weavers outside the city walls, their looms pounding like the heartbeat of a giant. You watch as they spin wool from scraggly desert sheep, dye it in vats of crushed pomegranate skins and fermented indigo. They show you the trick to triple knotting the tassels so they sway like palm fronds in a breeze that isn't even there. But one old woman shakes her head. "This is not new," she rasps. "This is remembered. These patterns, they are echoes." She tells you of a time when camel blankets weren't just decoration. They were maps, political symbols, even cursed relics. "You sell beauty," she warns. "Be sure no one buys power." You laugh it off. But that night, your camel refuses to lie on the blanket, just stands there, chewing ominously. Modern historians note that camel blankets were status symbols in many Silk Road societies, especially among nomadic elites. They weren't just warmth. They were wearable art, merchant signals, and sometimes, yes, ledgers disguised as loom work. One dusty scroll even claims a single blanket helped negotiate peace between rival tribes, though whether that was because of the weaving or the weaver's sharp tongue remains hotly debated. By week's end, you've sold 5 copies of the Phoenix blanket. Azar's thrilled. You've got silver in your pouch, dates in your belly, and at least one admirer who insists your stitching contains mystical properties. They ask if you're a prophet, You say no. But you're not sure you believe it. One night, by the communal fire, a traveler tells a story of a far-off oasis where camel blankets sing if placed under moonlight. You snort, but the others nod solemnly. It's true, someone murmurs, but only if you sleep under it naked. You decide not to test that. Still, something is happening. A thing is becoming a thing, and you are being gently devoured by it. The camel blanket you didn't even make is now your passport to strange cities, weirder friendships, and profits that definitely weren't in your 5-year plan. You're just trying to stay ahead of the rumors. And the tax collectors. And the guy who insists your blanket once belonged to his grandmother's second cousin's ghost. But hey, that's business on the Silk Road. By the time the caravan bell tolls at sunrise, you've already packed your tent, brushed sand out of your teeth, and bribed your camel with 3 dried figs to stop sulking. The embroidered blanket that once hung casually over your saddle is now carefully rolled and tied with a silk cord. Presentation matters now. You're not just a wanderer anymore. You're a merchant. A minor one. A micro merchant, really. But the gossip? That's scaling fast. You slip into formation with the caravan, 23 camels strong, creaking forward like a chorus of disgruntled ships. The air smells of sweat, salt, and that weird cumin spice everyone pretends not to mind. Behind you, Merv fades into the haze, and ahead stretches a trail known for 2 things: merciless sun and even more merciless gossip. Within an hour, the rumors begin. One trader claims you're the lost heir of a Sogdian prince who died in a blanket fire. Another swears your patterns contain coded love letters between a Chinese general and a Persian poetess. You try denying it, but the more you say no, the more they say, of course you'd say that. It's exhausting. So instead, you listen. The caravan is a rolling school of whispers. Traders mutter about shifting borders, crumbling alliances, and a recent crackdown on counterfeit silk in bulk. But most of all, they speak of blankets. Did you hear? A weaver near Bukhara vanished, left nothing but a spindle still spinning. They say a certain dye, deep blue, nearly black, can only be extracted during eclipses. My cousin's donkey refused to cross a river until his blanket was turned inside out. You nod politely, but one thread catches your ear. Talk of a merchant named Parvindas, rich beyond reason, trades only in camel blankets, lives in a mobile yurt stitched entirely from camel blankets. You laugh. No, really, the gossip insists. He wears one like a toga and sleeps with 5. People pay him in sapphires just to sniff the fringe. You file this away. Got it. Here's your text exactly as given. No notes, no extra explanations, no creative changes. Historians still argue whether such a merchant ever existed, or if Parvindas the Blanket King was just a collective hallucination brought on by sunstroke and fermented mare's milk. But if he did exist, he had one key advantage: pattern secrets. Pattern secrets are the currency of your new world. That evening, around the fire pit, a young Uzbek girl sits beside you and starts picking at your embroidery. Not damaging it, studying it. She traces the spiral around the phoenix with a stick in the sand. This, she says, is wrong. You blink. Excuse me? The spiral curves inward. That's the mourning direction. Phoenixes never mourn. You squint at your own blanket, baffled. She nods. My uncle teaches weaving in Herat. He says every pattern tells a story. Some tell lies. You don't sleep well that night. In the morning, you ask Azar if he knows about pattern symbology. He shrugs. Some buyers care, some don't. Just don't mix battle motifs with fertility symbols unless you want to start a very weird wedding. You press further. But who decides what patterns mean? He grins. Whoever survives the longest. The next village brings another surprise. A marketplace that doesn't sell food, tools, or clothing, only thread. Thousands of hanks of spun fiber hang from wooden racks, fluttering like prayer flags. Sellers shout over one another, date pit brown, windstorm gray, locust wing shimmer. A woman gestures for you to follow. She brings you to a cramped stall shaded by grapevines and hands you a coil of thread unlike anything you've seen. Cool blue, almost metallic. Caterpillar silk, she whispers. Harvested from the trees near Kashgar, fed only apricot leaves. Makes a thread fine enough to stitch onto a whisper. You laugh, but her face stays serious. It's good for secrets. Later, Azar tells you the thread was probably just goat wool dyed in copper ash. But you can't stop wondering, what if? Back on the road, the caravan stumbles into a sandstorm without warning. You wrap your blanket around your face, shielding your eyes and ears. Everything becomes noise and grit. Someone loses a sandal. Someone else loses their entire camel. The storm roars past like an angry grandmother, and when silence returns, so does something else. A merchant kneels beside his trampled cart, weeping, not for his goods, but for his blankets. They were my ledger, he moans. Every client, every debt, stitched into the border. Azar nods solemnly. Happens more often than you'd think. It turns out, in some trading communities, ledgers weren't scrolls, they were stitches. A dot here meant a payment, a cross, a delivery, a red knot, a debt paid in blood. You stare at your own blanket with fresh suspicion. That night, huddled in your tent, you wonder if your blanket is trying to tell you something. You trace the edges again. The phoenix, the spiral, the tiny red diamond under the fringe. Was that always there? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's mold. You fall asleep dreaming of thread, endless, winding whispering. Somewhere in that dream, someone tugs your sleeve and says, "They're not just designs, they're maps." You wake up gasping. Quirky fact of the day? In some parts of Central Asia, blanket fringe length was used to signal marital status. The longer the fringe, the more eligible the camel. The owner, too, allegedly. In the distance, the caravan approaches a fork in the road. One leads toward the mountains. The other toward the ancient city of Balkh, where the dye masters reside. Azar turns to you. "We're heading toward the silk smugglers," he says. "You ready to blend in?" You pause. Then you tie your fancy blanket over your shoulders like a cape. Born ready. You've barely passed the stone markers etched with ancient Persian prayers when the scent hits you. Bitter ink, stale sweat, and the faint sweetness of rotting dates. That's how you know you've entered Bactria. It's not exactly advertised on maps as the land of charming hospitality. Bactria is where camels go to question their life choices, and traders get robbed by teenagers wearing earrings made from stolen coins. Your first warning comes when a pebble clinks off your shoulder. Then another. You glance up, but it's already too late. 3 figures leap from behind a boulder, blades out, mouths covered in ragged scarves. One of them shouts, "Hand over the phoenix!" Azar freezes. "They mean the blanket," he hisses. You throw your hands up. "It's a blanket!" You shout. "For camels." They don't care. One lunges. You duck. Your camel, to its eternal credit, plants a heroic kick straight into the attacker's solar plexus. The thief crumples like an overcooked flatbread. You run. The blanket thumps against your side as you scramble through jagged rock, your sandals slipping, heart hammering. Behind you, curses in at least 4 languages echo between the cliffs. Eventually, you hide in a narrow crevice, your breath coming in sharp gasps, clutching the stupid, beautiful, infamous blanket to your chest like it's a sacred relic. Because apparently, it is. Historians still argue whether any single camel blanket ever sparked a heist, but records from a 10th century caravanserai mention a textile incident that escalated into a 2-day standoff between rival guilds. The merchant notes, "They fought like devils over a blanket that looked no different from mine. I sold mine the next day for a sheep and felt quite clever. By sundown, you're back in camp, filthy and bruised." Azar's fuming. "Do you have any idea what this means?" "That you owe me dinner?" You guess. "It means someone's putting a price on patterns." Turns out the embroidery on your blanket isn't just rare, it's exclusive. You didn't copy it. You couldn't. But it matches the seal of a long-defunct guild in Bactria, known as the House of the Spiral Flame, supposedly destroyed in a fire decades ago. Yet here's their signature motif, wrapped around your camel's butt. You start asking questions. People stop answering them. The deeper you dig, the stranger the tales get. Some say the spiral flame weavers used thread spun from the hair of monks who'd taken a vow of silence. Others claim they died with crushed butterfly wings and dream vapor. One trader swears the blanket predicts trade winds. Another insists it's cursed, that anyone who copies the design wakes up speaking only Sogdian and develops a terrible rash. A few days later, you receive a visitor. Not a trader, not a thief, a child, maybe 8, maybe 9. Dressed in clothes too fine for the dust on their shoes, with eyes that seem to aid you just by looking. They step into your tent and point to the blanket, now folded neatly on a woven mat. "This belonged to my grandmother," they say. You blink. "Is she looking for it? She died, in a fire, with the others. But she told me if I ever found the phoenix with the spiral wound the wrong way, I should follow it." You offer the blanket. They don't take it. No, the child says, you keep it. You're not done. Then they leave, just like that, vanished. Azar says nothing for a long time. Finally, he murmurs, well, that's either a blessing or a curse, possibly both. You try to shake it off, but that night you notice something new. The colors of the blanket have changed, just slightly. The indigo is deeper. The burnt orange has hints of red. Maybe it's the firelight. Maybe it's not. Next morning, you wake to a trail of thread leading out of your tent. Not kidding. A literal trail of blue silk thread, like some fairy tale breadcrumb path. You follow it. It leads to an abandoned loom beneath an apricot tree. There's no one there. Just a shuttle halfway through a line of stitches that exactly match your blanket. You step closer. The breeze picks up. The thread moves, like the loom is still weaving. You back away slowly. Fringe fact, in parts of ancient Central Asia, certain looms were believed to hold the spirit of their last weaver. If that weaver died violently or with unfinished business, the loom was said to continue working at night, completing its soul's last thread. Most historians dismiss this as folklore, but a few accounts describe partially woven cloth appearing mysteriously during new moons. That night, you leave a coil of thread beside the loom. In the morning, it's gone. Onward you travel, through winding mountain passes where the air thins and every breath feels like sipping sand. You begin spotting imitations of your blanket in marketplaces. Not identical, but inspired. Lesser. Sloppy spirals. Phoenixes that look like angry ducks. Azar is furious. They're knocking off your brand. You raise an eyebrow. My brand? Yes, we need a sigil, a unique tassel configuration. Something that says, this blanket, authentic. You sigh. You want to trademark the camel butt cover? I want to protect the integrity of your legacy. Which is, Azar grins, fancy camel blankets. Mainstream historians agree. The silk routes didn't just spread spices and silk. They spread branding. Artisanal motifs became regional markers. Guilds protected designs. Even blanket fraud was a thing, a serious thing. Fines, confiscations, public ridicule. Nothing ruins your year like being called a pattern thief in Samarkand. You and Azar set to work. You create a hidden signature, a sequence of 9 tiny knots in the lower left tassel, invisible unless you know where to look. You start sketching designs at night, experimenting with thread tension and dyed borders. You even add a double-lined crescent to honor your latest close call. Soon, orders increase. A spice caravan from Ghazni requests 6. A horse breeder from Herat wants 1 lined with padded goat hair. You even hear rumors that a noblewoman in Nishapur has started collecting your designs like rare jewels. But all the while, you wonder, who made that first one? And why does it feel like it's still watching? The road to Balkh is less of a road and more of a collaborative hallucination shared by desperate traders and camels with outstanding grudges. Dust clogs your nostrils. Your knees ache. Even your blanket looks tired, its edges gathering grime, the silk fading just enough to whisper, you should have sprung for the deluxe saddlebag. But Balkh glows ahead like a fever dream. At least it would glow if it weren't hidden beneath a suffocating fog of incense, smoke, and lies. You pass under its crumbling stone arch, the city pulsing with a peculiar energy, equal parts silk trade, religious fervor, and black market optimism. Azar tugs your sleeve. Stay close, he mutters. We're heading underground. Literally. Turns out the best silk deals in Balkh don't happen in the daylight bazaar. They happen in the catacombs beneath the old fire temple. You squeeze through a cracked wall behind a fig stall, stumble down stone steps, and emerge into a world where silk glistens like oil and camel blankets? Oh, they're currency now. This isn't your grandmother's trading post. This is the textile underworld. Bolts of contraband silk are rolled tight and stored in oilskin tubes. Bartered whispers pass through the space like wind through reeds. People here don't speak full sentences. They nod at color palettes, whisper dye ratios, and occasionally click their tongues in code. Your blanket catches attention the moment it unfurls. A gaunt man with lacquered fingernails approaches. He calls himself Senka, though that's clearly a pseudonym for someone whose real name probably involves at least 1 stolen passport and a tragic backstory. He touches the phoenix spiral. Doesn't blink. Encryption, he says. You blink back. What? This, he murmurs, tracing the pattern, isn't art. It's code. You laugh, a little too nervously. A code for what? Wiping camel noses? But Senka's dead serious. He believes the motif encodes coordinates, trade routes, maybe even names, stitched in a sequence known only to a now extinct guild. It's a language, he insists. Thread as script, motif as map. Historians still argue whether Silk Road textiles ever carried embedded codes. Some suggest certain weavers doubled as spies, passing messages through warp and weft. A disputed Chinese chronicle even claims that a single cloak led to the betrayal of a Tang dynasty official, who'd worn his assassination orders as lining. Back in bulk, you're ushered into a dusty side chamber lined with rugs. Senka offers you a steaming cup of tea that smells like burnt honey and betrayal. He wants a deal. Not to buy your blanket, but to replicate it, precisely. Not just the colors or the weave, but the micro irregularities in tension, thread twist, and stitch height. I want a forgery so perfect it confesses nothing and hides everything, he says. You decline. Azar, however, is staring at the ceiling like it's got gold dripping from it. Think of the influence, he whispers. Blankets as coded language? We could sell these to diplomats, to spies. Imagine the royalties. You shake your head. We're not in the espionage throw blanket business. Azar sighs. Yet. On your way out, you spot a merchant selling what looks like your exact design, but mirrored. You storm over. The seller shrugs. It's not the same. Mine's for left-handed camels. You almost break a stool. Later that night, you and Azar debrief in a rooftop tea house. You sip something minty and mysterious, watching the stars poke through the smoke like reluctant confessions. I don't get it, you mutter. It's just a blanket. No, Azar says softly. It's a story, and stories get stolen. A young boy walks past your table, humming a song. You catch the lyrics. Spiral burns, phoenix flies, secrets stitched behind the eyes. You sit up straight. Where'd you hear that? He grins. It's a game song. All the Weaver's kids sing it. Want me to teach you the clapping part? He does. You fail miserably. Still, the melody sticks. You begin to notice it everywhere. A lullaby, a prayer, a rhythmic chant used by traders counting coins. The same pattern, the same tune, woven through languages and accents like a ghost. Quirky tidbit? Some anthropologists believe trade songs were among the earliest tools of knowledge encryption. Complex ideas, roots, customs, rules, even political gossip were hidden in melodies, preserved across cultures long after the original meaning faded. Like a Trojan horse in a lullaby. Back in your tent, you unroll the blanket again. You hum the tune. Your fingers trace the stitches. You realize it matches. Not just the melody, the structure. The downbeats fall on color shifts. The crescendo lines up with the spiral. The refrain, right where the phoenix's wing arcs. It's not just a song. It's a cipher. Your breath catches. You don't know what it means yet, but someone does. You make a decision. Tomorrow, you're following the melody. No more random routes. No more hiding. You're going straight to the dye masters of Samarkand. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find someone who knows what this cursed, miraculous, absurdly popular blanket was meant to say. You ride toward Samarkand at dawn, the horizon smeared with apricot and ash. The blanket is slung across your lap, warm from the rising sun and faintly vibrating with the rhythm of hooves. Azar snores behind you on a borrowed mule named Cinnamon. Your camel has developed an attitude problem since bulk, perhaps insulted by the suggestion that any other mount could be trusted with such precious cloth. Samarkand isn't a city, it's a declaration. Blue-tiled mosques sparkle like dragon scales. The scent of nutmeg and rosewater hits you before the first gate. Here, every wall has seen 1,000 trades and betrayed 100 secrets. You've come in search of color, specifically the dye masters, keepers of ancient alchemy, rumor, and stains that never wash out. If the blanket holds a message, if each hue encodes a tone or intention, they're your best chance at deciphering it. But getting access? That's another story. You try the front door approach. Hello, you say politely at the Indigo Guildhouse. I'd like to speak with someone about a phoenix. The guard looks at you as though you've just insulted his grandmother's yogurt. You try again, this time with a bribe. He accepts the coin, pockets it, and still doesn't move. Azar sighs. Time to activate Plan B. Plan B, it turns out, is impersonating a courier from the Shah's niece's cousin's embroidery instructor. It works disturbingly well. You're ushered through a hidden courtyard lined with vats the size of bathtubs. The air smells like metal, mold, and mystery. Steam curls from dye pots. Apprentices stir with sticks taller than you are. Some wear gloves. Some do not. A wiry man with fingers stained black to the knuckles approaches. You bring a pattern, he says, not a question. You show the blanket. He whistles. This hasn't been dyed in 50 years. Where did you find this? The blue alone. He strokes the fringe like it's a beloved cat. That's indigo, but not ordinary. It's double reduced. Azar tilts his head. Double what now? Normally, indigo is soaked once to bond the pigment, the dye master explains. It was fermented twice. Some say it reveals what's hidden. You lean in. Like hidden messages? The man smiles. Or hidden motives. Historians still argue whether double reduction indigo was used in covert communication or simply because it gave a better sheen. One school insists it had ritual uses. Another claims it was just a pretentious flex for royalty with fragile egos and too many camels. The dye master invites you into his workshop. There on the wall hangs a faded scroll. A diagram, rough but familiar, the phoenix spiral. Below it, a list of pigments, each marked with strange symbols. You ask what they mean. He shrugs. No one knows. This scroll came from Dunhuang, buried in a cave for centuries. The symbols match no known language, but they align with dyes. See this? Saffron. This? Crushed lapis. And here, he pauses, tapping a peculiar gold blot. This one doesn't exist anymore. We call it sunroot. He pulls a vial from a locked drawer. The powder inside is dazzling. Pale gold, but shimmering with green undertones, like morning light caught in a spider web. He sprinkles some on your blanket. Nothing happens. Then you look closer. The phoenix's eye changes. Just a glint, but it moves. A glimmer that shifts depending on your angle. Azar gasps. It's looking east. The dye master frowns. That's not possible. This thread is too old. You mutter. Or too determined. That night, you and Azar camp on a rooftop. He's sketching tassel prototypes in the dirt with a spoon. You're staring at the blanket again. Suddenly, a shadow blocks the moonlight. It's a woman, draped in gauze, eyes fierce, voice low. You are carrying stolen blood, she says. You leap to your feet. It was gifted to me. She doesn't blink. You think the threads do not remember? Azar steps between you. Look, we're just blanket people, okay? Not cult leaders. She removes a ring from her finger. The gem bears the phoenix spiral, reversed. You carry the echo. I carry the origin. Come at dawn to the dye pits of Keezer, alone. And then she vanishes. You stare at the ring in your hand. It's warm. Quirky tidbit? In some textile traditions, rings weren't just jewelry, they were dye tokens. Certain families passed them down as keys to secret recipes. Losing one was worse than losing a child. Well, depending on the child. At sunrise, you go. Azar stays behind, biting his nails and muttering about risk-to-profit ratios. The dye pits of Keezer are a maze. Sunken wells of pigment, each emitting a different scent: sour cherry, burnt hair, cinnamon, regret. She's waiting. No guards, no audience. She leads you down a narrow ramp to a shallow trough filled with dark liquid. Place the blanket. You hesitate. Will it survive? She lifts an eyebrow. Will you? You lay it in. The moment the fabric touches the dye, the air changes. A hum rises, low, strange, musical. Not from her, not from you, from the blanket. Letters appear, not stitched, not dyed, but surfacing, like bruises under the skin. Spirals interlocking with crescents, stars embedded in phoenix feathers, dots aligning with tassel knots. It's a map. She says nothing, just stares. Finally, you ask, what does it lead to? She doesn't answer. She just turns and walks away. Azar is furious when you return. You went alone? What if she was an assassin? You toss him the ring. She was a cartographer. Of what? You roll up the blanket, now stained with something new and impossible, of things not meant to be found. It starts small. A flash of familiar color across a marketplace stall in Termid. A child humming the phoenix tune while tying tassels on a worn goat rug. Then 2, then 5. By the time you reach Bukhara, everyone's camel is wearing a spiral. Not your spiral, of course. Not quite. Some look like burnt cookies. Some resemble abstract nightmares. A few, embarrassingly, feature what appear to be ducks. But the essence? The idea? It's everywhere. Your blanket has gone viral. Azar is simultaneously furious and giddy. They've butchered the signature. Look at that crescent placement. It's shameful. But also, we're famous. You sit on a low wall outside the Grand Caravanserai, watching a parade of camels strut by like a surreal fashion show. Some have layered fringe. Others display metallic thread or tassels dyed in bold, clashing colors. You spot a 2-humped Bactrian with a full cape. Azar whispers, "That's double velvet." The crowd gasps. You want to throw something. How did this happen, you ask? Easy, Azar shrugs. You're a trend. Historians still argue whether fashion trends on the Silk Road evolved naturally or were engineered by ambitious merchants. One controversial theory claims a deaf weaver named Feroza used color combinations to manipulate local aesthetics. Supposedly, she introduced deliberate accidents into her tapestries, and traders began copying them as if they held mystical significance. Some believe she started the entire wounded bird style popular in the 11th century. Back at your tent, you find a note tied to the door flap with red string. It reads, "Meet me at moonrise. Dye district. Come alone. Wear the spiral." Azar begs to follow. You say no. He follows anyway, poorly. You spot him hiding behind a camel shaped like a bread loaf. In the dye district, you meet an old man hunched over a vat of crushed beetles. His fingers are stained a color you can only describe as aggressively purple. "You are the blanket child," he croaks. "The Phoenix Rider." You try to correct him. He waves it off. He beckons you closer. They're not just patterns. They're stories. He points at your blanket. This one, it says Flight from Fire, Spiral Reborn, Guardian Marked. Very old tale. Banned once. Why banned? He shrugs. Too hopeful. You sit with him. He teaches you how to layer dyes to achieve shimmering effects, stacking crushed berries, onion skins, and powdered stone until the fabric catches the light like oil on water. Azar emerges from hiding and pretends he's been there all along. The old man chuckles. You are both fools, but good-hearted ones. He gives you a gift, a dye stick carved with 3 phoenixes, their wings curling inward to form a spiral. Dip this in salt water before dyeing. It reveals the hidden layers. You ask what he means? He smiles. You'll know when it's time. Later that week, you attend a caravan summit. Basically, a merchant party disguised as a negotiation. The stars are out, the wine is flowing, and everywhere you look, someone is complimenting someone else's camel blanket. One woman boasts hers is fireproof. Another claims her fringe deflects curses. A man from Khotan says his was blessed by a yak. Azar nudges you. We need a gimmick. You groan. But that night, lying beneath the stars, you admit something. You miss the simplicity. The first time you held that mysterious blanket, it was just a curiosity, a single spark in a desert of sand. Now, it's become a wildfire. Your pattern has been copied, mutated, sold, worshipped, cursed, and, according to one shouting vendor in a nearby stall, eaten by a goat and regurgitated onto a prophet. Quirky detail? Some nomadic tribes believe that if an animal chose to eat your woven cloth, it was a sign of divine selection. Goat blessings were weirdly specific. If a goat ate your sleeve, it meant love. If it chewed your hat, it meant revenge. If it devoured your blanket, well, better start packing. You consider abandoning the pattern altogether. Starting fresh. New design. Clean lines. Something minimalist. Azar scoffs. Minimalist camel blankets? What's next? Beige? Instead, you decide to lean in. You begin to develop intentional variations of your design. One with stars woven through the phoenix's wings. One with hidden knots spelling messages in merchant code. One that changes color depending on wind direction. Okay, that's mostly just clever dye layering and superstition, but they don't need to know that. Azar drafts a slogan. Blankets that whisper. You don't hate it. Soon, you're receiving custom orders. A noble wants a blanket that feels like spring. A general asks for one that hides a dagger. A caravan matron requests a blanket depicting a family tree, spun entirely from the hair of her 17 grandchildren. You deliver. A crown. Not a stitched crown of thread, but a real one. Tiny, hammered from thin sheets of gold, sewn directly into the spiral's heart. It catches the sun like a coin tossed in slow motion. Azar stares. That's new. You feel your stomach drop. That's wrong. The caravan leader, a tall man with a voice like crushed gravel, dismounts. He wears the same crown motif on his chest, embossed into leather. You, he says, pointing at you with a gloved hand, are the one who wove the seal of the phoenix. You try to deny it. He waves you off. No need to lie. We've been looking for you. Behind him, his riders shift uneasily, gold tassels swaying like warning bells. One of them carries a bundle wrapped in black silk. The leader nods, and the bundle is unwrapped. It's a blanket. Your blanket. Except this one bleeds. Not literally, but the reds are so deep they seem to drip into the spirals. And at its center, where the phoenix's chest should be, there's a hollow circle of uncolored thread. What happened to it, you ask? The leader smiles faintly. It's unfinished. He leans closer. And it can only be finished by the one who began it. Azar's eyes go wide. Nope, absolutely not. We don't finish mysterious bleeding blankets for strangers with gold hats. The leader ignores him. We'll be in Samarkand until the moon wanes. If the work is done by then, the phoenix rises. If not, his voice trails off, but the weight of his paws hangs heavier than any threat. He tosses you a pouch. It lands in your palm with a metallic clink. Inside are gold threads, real ones, impossibly fine, the kind used only for royal commissions or funerary shrouds. Think carefully, he says, before turning his camel and riding away. You stand in the settling dust, the unfinished phoenix burning in your mind. Azar exhales. So, priest? You don't answer. You're staring at the gold threads, and at the way the spiral in the leader's crown had been stitched, tighter, sharper, as if it were winding toward something inevitable. Salt pirates, to be precise. They appear on the horizon as black specks, then grow into sleds skimming the crusted flats, sails snapping in the dry wind. Their runners kick up white dust like breaking waves. Azar squints. Tell me those are friendly traders. You don't answer. The lead sled cuts across your path, forcing your camel to snort and stumble. 3 figures leap down, wrapped head to toe in salt-stained scarves, goggles reflecting the sun. The tallest steps forward. Nice camel blanket, they say. Their voice is flat, genderless, and carries that irritating confidence of someone who knows you have no escape route. You instinctively reach for the blanket strapped to your saddle. It's personal property. They tilt their head. It's marked, spiral grade. Azar groans. Oh no, they're in on it. Apparently, spiral grade is salt pirate slang for premium plunder. Somewhere along the line, your phoenix motif became shorthand for worth stealing. The tall pirate gestures, and another steps forward, carrying a blade that glitters with an edge crusted in crystalline salt. Hand it over, the tall one says, or we'll cut the spiral out and leave you the rest. You glance at Azar. He gives you a tiny shake of his head. Don't fight. Reluctantly, you loosen the straps. The pirate takes the blanket, fingers brushing the threads with something dangerously close to reverence. This, they say softly, wasn't made for Altan. Your pulse jumps. How do you know that? They look up, lenses catching the sun. Because it hums wrong. Before you can ask what that means, a shout rings out from one of the sleds. The tall pirate curses, rolls the blanket into a tube, and tosses it back at you. Keep it, you're bait now. And just like that, the pirates leap back onto their sleds and vanish into the horizon, leaving you and Azar sitting in the dry wind with a blanket that suddenly feels twice as heavy. Azar breaks the silence. What did they mean, bait? You're still staring at the spiral. The threads seem tighter, the colors just a shade deeper. And somewhere inside the weave, there's a pulse. Not your pulse. You swallow. I think we're about to find out. You spend the next 3 hours in a negotiation that feels more like a riddle contest. The Shahzada demands not just a blanket, but a celestial map that breathes. The constellations must shift subtly when the fabric is moved. The spiral, she insists, will anchor the whole thing. Except hers must curve as the Milky Way curves, which she describes in terms so poetic, you're not entirely sure they're astronomically possible. Azar nods through all of it. Scribbling down star shimmer, find out how? And scorpion proof? Ask old man with purple hands. When she finally dismisses you, a servant presents a lacquered chest containing your down payment, dyed silks in shades you've never seen, a bundle of meteorite needles, and a small pouch of silver dust that smells faintly of rain on stone. As you leave the palace gardens, Azar can barely contain himself. This is it. Royal commission. We could make a whole cosmos line. Rich people love lying under the stars without getting sand in their hair. You mutter something non-committal. Because deep down, you know this isn't just another order. The spiral is no longer yours. Every stitch pulls it further into the hands of those who can use it. For beauty, for power, for whatever the Salt School is plotting. That night in your quarters, you unroll the gifted silks. They gleam even in lamplight. And at the very bottom of the chest, half hidden under a folded bolt of midnight blue, you find something that wasn't part of the Shahzada's order. A scrap of cloth, rough weave. Your spiral, broken, roots curling outward, petals falling, and in one petal barely visible unless you tilt it toward the flame, an eye, watching. You reach into your satchel and pull out a folded scrap of rough cotton. It's not your finest work, unfinished, unpolished, dyed with whatever pigments you had on hand in the Shahzada's courtyard. But the design is unmistakable. The broken phoenix, roots curling from its body, petals drifting down into an open spiral, the one you've kept hidden, the one from the dream. Gasps ripple through the room, smirk wavers. That's not in your usual style. It's not mine, you say. It's the next chapter. You hold it just long enough for him to see, then fold it again and tuck it back into your satchel. The spiral wants to go somewhere. You can sell the past. You nod toward the phoenix spiral behind him. Or you can own the future. He studies you, weighing greed against ego, fame against the safe profit hanging on his wall. Then, slowly, he lowers the blanket. One condition, he says. I keep the original until you finish the new one. Call it collateral. You shake your head. The original comes with me, or there's no pattern. The crowd stirs. Someone in the back whispers, let them trade. The parrot mutters, future, future. Said's eyes narrow. Then, with an exhale like a man folding to the inevitable, he tosses you the phoenix spiral. It lands heavy in your arms, warm, alive, humming again after all this time. You have until the spring caravan, he says, and if you're late, I'll make my own future. Azar is grinning like a fool when you leave the bazaar. We have it back, and a commission, and you cut him off. We have work to do, and I think this time the spiral's leading. That night, under a sky webbed with caravan lanterns, you unroll the blanket across your lap. The colors shift in the firelight, the spiral tightening, the phoenix's eye glinting as though it knows what comes next. And in the faint rustle of the fringe, you hear it, a whisper, almost words, pulling you toward the loom. By the time you reach the second mountain pass, you've stopped pretending these knots are accidents. The memories aren't visions exactly, more like scents or temperatures, moods you can't explain. You run your thumb over the knot that feels like midsummer rain. Another tastes like the metal tang of the dye vats in Kum. The monk notices. You're listening, he says. I'm remembering, you reply. He nods. Same thing. That night, you can't sleep. The blanket is wrapped around your shoulders, the beetle mark warm against your palm. You try to count the knots the way you used to count stitches, but each one seems to pull you deeper. Then, one hums. Not the blanket, not the spiral. The knot itself. It's faint, like hearing a song through a wall. You press your ear to it. There's no sound, only an image. A loom in a room you've never seen. Light pouring through high windows, a shadow moving just out of sight. You jerk back. Azar stirs beside the fire. Bad dream? You shake your head. Worse, invitation. The monk doesn't look surprised when you tell him. Some knots open? He says simply. That's what your teacher's teacher sought in the West. The loom that finishes what we begin. Azar rubs his face. You two are talking like we're about to follow a magic carpet map to a cursed sewing circle. You don't answer. Because you're already turning the blanket over, tracing the spiral, wondering if the beetle was never the real message at all, just a marker for the first open door. And somewhere in the twisting of threads under your fingers, you feel it again, that low, steady pulse. Not calling you back, calling you forward. She's taller now, maybe 12, maybe 13, but the eyes are the same, too old for her face, dark as the bottom of a dye vat. The same child who once stepped into your tent, pointed to the phoenix spiral wound the wrong way, and told you you're not done. She rides a pale camel draped in a blanket you've never seen before. The phoenix isn't flying, it's walking. Its wings are folded tight, and the spiral beneath is broken into concentric ripples, like raindrops hitting a still pond. The colors are strange too, ashen white and deep water green, shades you've never used. The caravan stops. The child slides down from the saddle and walks toward you, boots sinking slightly into the sand. She doesn't smile. She doesn't greet Azar. She just stands before you and says, "It's time." You glance at Azar. He mouths, "For what?" The girl reaches into her satchel and pulls out something small, a knot of gold and indigo thread bound so tightly it looks like a seed. She places it in your hand. "Where did you get this?" you ask. She tilts her head toward the horizon. "From the weaver who finishes what others begin." You stare at the seed knot. It's warm, warmer than it should be in the cool desert air. And when you press it lightly between your fingers, you feel it. Hum. Azar shifts uncomfortably. "You're going to open it, aren't you?" You don't answer, because you already know you will. And you already knew the spiral will change again. You lift it from the loom, half expecting it to feel heavier than it looks. It doesn't. It's light. almost too light, as if the weight you've been carrying all these years stayed behind in the empty frame. The phoenix in the center is unlike any you've woven before, neither triumphant nor defeated. Its wings fold halfway, not in retreat but in embrace. The spiral beneath is complete, but not closed. A soft loop, an opening shaped like the horizon at dawn. The deliberate flaws catch your eye. A skipped thread that looks like a comet's trail, a tassel slightly too long that sways as though it's breathing. Azar leans over your shoulder. That's it? You nod. That's it. He studies it for a long moment. Looks finished. It is. You roll it gently, wrap it in cloth, and set it beside you. The air in the tent feels still, expectant. Outside, the desert is quiet enough to hear the small shift of sand under a camel's hoof. By morning, she's there. The girl from Bactria, no, the young woman now, standing just beyond the fire pit, her camel draped in banners faded from the road. You listened, she says. I did. She doesn't ask to see it. She just holds out her hands. You pass her the wrapped spiral. It hums faintly between you, the way a bridge might hum when two people stand at either end. What happens now, you ask? Her eyes soften. Now it goes where it's always been going. She mounts her camel without another word. The caravan turns west, the banners trailing in the morning wind. Azar watches until they vanish. So, that's it. You pour tea. That's it. But as you lift the cup, you notice a single loose thread on your sleeve, dyed in a shade you've never used. And you wonder if the spiral is done with you, or if it's only just begun. You rest your hand on the fabric a moment longer, feeling the faint vibration travel up through your palm. It's different from the hum you've known all these years. Less insistent, more resolved. Azar sidles up beside you, tilting his head at the blanket. So, that's it then? The story's over? You shake your head. No, it's just no longer mine to tell. The girl? No, the woman now, meets your gaze with the quiet certainty of someone who's carried more than she could ever explain. It will keep changing, she says, but it doesn't need you to guide it anymore. You almost smile. And what about me? She shrugs lightly. Find the next thread. She folds the blanket carefully, not like a relic, but like something that still has work to do. When she leaves, the air in your small workshop seems to shift, less crowded somehow, yet heavier with possibility. You sit for a long while at the empty table. The market noise drifts in through the open door. The chatter of traders, the clink of coin, the rustle of cloth in the wind. Beyond it all, you hear the steady rhythm of looms working somewhere in the distance. Finally, you pull out your spindle. The wood is worn smooth from years of turning, the carved phoenix spiral at its base now barely visible. You turn it in your hand, feeling the weight and balance. Not looking for the old hum, just listening. A thread catches the light in your kit. Not one you remember packing. It's a color you've never used before. You smile, and you begin. The wind carries the faint scent of dye and desert sage, curling around the quiet camp like a shawl. Somewhere in the distance, a loom clicks once, then falls silent, as if to remind you that even the most enduring patterns must pause. Azar has drifted off in his chair, the teacup still in his hand. The apprentice's slow, steady spinning is the only movement, the wheel turning as naturally as breath. She doesn't look up. Doesn't need to. The spiral knows where it's going now. Your hands rest, open and empty. No urge to reach for thread, no need to shape another pattern. The stories have found their place. The knots have found their tension. You glance at the blanket one last time before sleep. The phoenix's wings curve not in defense, but in welcome. The spiral embraces itself. There is no beginning or end, only the return. The desert night folds over you, a weightless cover. The air cools, the fire sighs low, the camel's breathing blends with your own. You close your eyes. The journey hums on, somewhere beyond you, soft, unhurried, endless. And in the hush between heartbeats, the last knot holds.